Okay. The regular meeting of the Planning Commission is called to order. We will now take a moment for silent prayer or mediation. And I would like to open this meeting in condemning the war over in the Middle East and sending my prayers to the people of Israel. And then we will follow by the Pledge of Allegiance by Planning Manager Joanne Burns.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the flag salute. Please face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
all. Okay. Paulina, can you call roll call, please?
Yes. Good evening, commissioners. Commissioner Heng? Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
Commissioner Becerra? Oh, I think that's her. We'll do Vice Chair Williams.
Present.
And Chair Gutierrez.
Here.
Oh, Chair Gutierrez?
Here.
Okay, sorry. I don't know if I didn't hear you.
Okay.
And then to note that Commissioner Becerra just walked in.
Great. We'll move on to the approval of minutes of the regular meeting. Tonight we have minutes from the regular meeting on September 26, 2023 of the regular meeting. Does anyone have amendments or corrections to these minutes? Seeing none, these minutes are approved as amended. We'll now move on to oral communications. Would anyone like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda today? Okay, we don't have. Okay, now we'll close that and move on to the consent calendar. Tonight we have one item on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 23-6132 of the adoption of a resolution?
Chair Gutierrez?
Yes.
I would like to just pull it for a quick comment prior to taking a vote.
Okay. Perfect. So would I move that to
So it would be appropriate if you're pulling the item for consent calendar and then to go ahead and allow comment to this time. No, this would be for commission discussion.
Okay. We'll now open commission discussion, and we'll start off with Commissioner Lewis.
Sure. I wanted to pull this specifically because I dissented on this vote at last meeting, and I think it's a bit troubling that we would take this tack so early on in this process. I've been a commissioner in West Covina for 14 years. I have never seen a single instance where the Planning Commission has not given a business an opportunity to remediate a violation of its conditional use permit. It has not happened. This commission has decided that this is going to be the exception to that rule. And that part troubles me a bit, particularly when we're talking about someone's livelihood, we're talking about a small business. Ultimately, I certainly understand and I certainly agree that if the conditions that were being violated were pervasive and ongoing and were not remediated, that the revocation of this conditional use permit and the AUPs in accordance therewith would be perfectly appropriate. But I think it's a little premature, particularly given this commission. And I will say, I believe that everyone on this commission has provided members of the public, residents, and businesses deference ever since I've been on here. And so I find that troubling, and that's my comment. And with that, I will motion to approve the consent calendar item, but I will be voting no.
Okay. Vice Chair Williams, do you have any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay.
And just for clarification for the vote that's being, the vote is for approval of the minutes. So it is not a revisiting of the item this time. This is just approving the minutes. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. It is. It is. It's approval of what the commission did. It is not a revote. If that makes sense. So all this vote would be saying is this is what happened.
Great. Commissioner Becerra, any comments?
No, but also that item is going to go before the city council as well, so thank you.
Great. Commissioner Yang?
Can you clarify, will this be going to city council?
It will only go to the city council if it was appealed.
So they do have 10 days to appeals, correct?
That is correct. After this action is taken, there's 10 days to appeal.
So if Commissioner Lewis is thinking about pulling it, City Attorney, can you clarify to see if that you had mentioned that it's not a V vote?
Yeah, I think I've confused I think I've confused the issue. So the code requires that the resolution return to the commission for approval. So I think for simplicity, it would be appropriate for your votes to be consistent with your conscience, essentially, on the to whether revoke or not to revoke at this time. So, Commissioner Lewis, could you please restate your motion for the record?
I said that I would motion to approve the consent calendar as set forth. I don't want to belabor the point.
And to be clear, that motion is for consent calendar is adoption.
Motion to adopt the revocation, which I indicated I will vote no on.
Understood, sir.
Okay, so
in that
you just wanted to open discussion, right? Not pool it.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I want to make a record.
Okay, so you just wanted discussion.
So a yes vote is adoption of resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of West Covina revoking conditional use permit number 15-05 and administrative use permit 15-09. That would be a yes vote would be adoption of that resolution.
Great. And so I'll just say that given the circumstances, based upon the evidence that was provided by the city and the West Covina Police Department and the amount of shootings and violence that were occurring at the property, but most importantly, the disconnection of CCTV cameras to somehow not be in cooperation with our law enforcement department and other partners in the community to fight crime. The owner, under his own sworn testimony, he admitted to disconnecting that CCTV coverage after a sheriff's department raid, which had nothing to do with the West Covina Police Department. And with that said, I'll second that motion. So if Paulina could do roll call.
So,
What do you mean you second the motion?
Okay, so, Nick made a motion.
it's to approve
To
the consent
approve.
calendar.
Consent calendar.
Calendar.
All Nick did was open discussion because he wanted to make a comment on the record, and so the motion stands to approve the consent calendar. So approving the consent calendar is moving forward with revocation of the conditional use permit and the AUP for Rebel Yell, which is the vote that you guys did at the last meeting. I hope that clarifies.
So we're going to approve it again? Is that what we're doing?
So I have a motion by Commissioner Lewis, a second by Chair Gutierrez. Commissioner Heng?
I also want to add to that it's not final in terms of, in a sense, that they can appeal to City Council within 10 days. Oh, even though we made it a decisions, correct? Just make sure. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lewis?
No.
Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams?
Aye.
And Chair Gutierrez?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. And as mentioned, this motion, you said aye.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't have this in my document, but do you want to, City Attorney, can you read the legal statement about the appeal process or whatever the disclaimer is?
I can go ahead and read
Or
it.
Joanne, go ahead.
Okay. Per section 26-297.18 of the West Covina Municipal Code, the Planning Commission decision may be appealed to the City Council by any interested party within 10 days of the approval of the written decision. The appeal must be submitted to the City Clerk's office in writing and must include specific reasons for the appeal.
Great, thank you.
Just real quick for the record, the appellant must pay the appeal cost, correct, to get it in front of the City Council?
That is correct. According to the municipal code on revocations, the party that is appealing would have to pay the appeal fee, and also a portion of
Half the estimated cost of preparing the administrative record. So gathering all the documents together.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on to public hearings. Tonight we have 3 public hearings, and we'll start off with number 3, which is the precise plan number 20-02, projects consistent with a community plan, general plan, or zoning. The applicant is Mark Gabe, which is located at parcel number 8474-009-009, a parking lot on the south side of the Walnut Creek Parkway between South Vincent Avenue and South Glendora Avenue. Paulina, who will do the staff report?
Our planning manager, Joanne Burns, will be providing the presentation.
Great.
this item is good evening, Chair, and also members of the Planning Commission. This item is a continued item from a public hearing item that was last heard on September 12th. And at that time, the Planning Commission provided the applicant direction to revise the architectural style of the project to add Mediterranean elements so that the design is consistent with the colony's architecture. The colony is located right across the street from the project site. In addition to that, the Planning Commission also provided staff direction to update the resolution to direct the applicant or require the applicant to add a CCTV system that is listed under condition 5 in the Planning Division condition 5T, and to install lighting along the front and to ensure that the lighting is controlled by the apartment management, and that is listed in condition 5U, and also to prohibit storage on the outside patio and or balcony areas, with the exception of outdoor patio furniture, and that is 5V. The applicant has revised the architectural style of the project, and staff believes that the revised design is consistent with the Planning Commission's direction. Just a brief summary of what the project is about. It is to construct a 51-unit apartment building. It's 3 stories with subterranean parking. It would provide for 84 parking spaces. And the lot size is 42,672 square feet. The landscaping in the site plan and lot configuration has not changed. It remains the same. The only thing that has changed is, per the Planning Commission's decision or direction, is the architectural style. So on the projector is a comparison of the new design to the previous design. The Mediterranean elements are visible and include the white stucco walls, porcelain tiles, wrought iron balcony railings, S-roof tiles on the cornice, and arched elements. The height, size, number of units, and floor plan has not changed. This remains the same. The only thing that changed is the architectural style of the building, and it is to match or be consistent with the colony. Here is the rendering of the proposed design. With this, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving precise plan number 20-02. Staff is available to answer any questions if the Planning Commission does have any.
Great. Thank you for the staff report. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any questions for staff?
Joanne, I do have one question, though. Regarding the 2 pictures that you put up earlier, last week I remember seeing there's a lot of wall spaces in the frontage of the street, but now it seems like it's landscape. Is that particular the landscape in front of the walls? Can you take a look and pull those 2 pictures back up, please?
The design and proposed landscaping is still the same. That has not changed. The same floor plan and site plan is being used. There was no change in that. This is the rendering. The rendering shows landscaping similar to what was shown at the last hearing. So this was the landscaping that was shown at the last hearing within the rendering itself. So it's not reflective of any proposed changes or.
I guess my question is this: if the building currently is built on the property line, these landscaping that we're looking at, or at least these new pictures that we're looking at, will it be planted by the city? Because the building currently, regarding even the walls, are on the property line.
No. Okay. So when projects are proposed and constructed, part of the requirement is public right-of-way improvements. That includes landscaping in the public right-of-way and also installation of city trees.
Okay, so basically after, this is City Parkway in terms of the landscape that we're looking at it right now, the frontage of this portion it will be city maintenance afterward?
So a portion of it is going to be in the public right of way in the parkway portion. And then a portion of that landscaping is along planter areas along the front of the building.
Can you pull up the site plan then to see where?
I have it up.
You have it up?
So there's landscaping planters along the front. So this portion right here, this in these areas.
I don't see it. So the little pocket area between the sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. And that portion is being maintained because I guess my concern is there's a lot of walls in that area and it's, graffiti prone. So if there are planters there that's constantly there, then potentially hopefully we won't see graffitis on those walls. Can you bring up the buildings between the two again, please? The first one, the first picture, those?
This picture?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is right now, the frontage of the street, there are planter walls or there's walls. It looks like it's about 5 feet. I can't really read it. It's so tiny in this map.
Are you talking about this right here?
Correct. Those walls. Correct.
Sorry, what was your question?
I guess my question is the planters right there, because if I remember correctly last week, the buildings is practically on the property line. So between these pictures right here that we're looking at it up on the screen, there's a lot of wall with no plants. But if the city is planting those plants, I'm hoping that it would block those walls so this way we don't have, how do we prevent graffitis from happening, because there's a lot of.
So your concern is not leaving a lot of blank wall space for graffiti or to encourage graffiti. You want to see where we can make sure that there's plants that creates a barrier for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, now we'll open the public hearing. We'll hear testimony from the applicant, Sarah Witters.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you very much for having me back today. It was very fun the first time. Hopefully we could get it right. We've done so many variations of this to make sure that we could keep within the height and basically meet the code requirements of the specific plan, which we have had from the very beginning. The accommodation for the Mediterranean look and the redesign was voluntary on our behalf because we did meet every item that was required in your specific plan. We did follow the code. So I did want to mention that I do have, so that you could get a close-up, they were on the very bottom. One of the copies the printer gave me everything that we did. So my apologies, because they're fresh, hot off the press. Our architect went on vacation. When he got back, he saw what his other architect did. He didn't like it, so then he redefined it. So I think we got it. And to answer Commissioner Heng's question regarding the landscaping, yes, we would provide the landscaping. We will maintain it. And as you could see, we did add more landscaping to our area as well. We made it more plush. The trees are a little bit more mature. They're going to be larger. They will be a bigger gallon tree, so that way you have a plush landscaping. The other thing also is that there was a suggestion about making the windows larger. We did accommodate that. And then we will have all the specifics in our construction drawings once, hopefully we get your approval to proceed. So we can give you the exact. But this here, your specific plan requires us to have a stoop type up to the property line. And that's exactly what we did. But what we did do, which I think we accomplished, was to create more, put more landscaping, make it plusher so you don't see it breaks up some of the massing. And we're very proud of the project. I thank you because, I think the comments that were made and with the changes, we're very happy to,
you combine all three. You put the historic, modern.
Yes, I think
all
this
together.
is a good combination. I think it brings it up to the new day, and then also it complements the area. So thank you for you could drive by and show your family that, you had a hand in that. And we're very happy for that. You have any questions?
Does any of the commission have questions? Go ahead.
No, I think it looks great.
There was also a comment about washer dryer in the units. That's something that will be an amenity within the units, all of them.
Now, will you be open to installing a flock camera for the location?
Well, we have the CCTV that we agreed to.
Okay.
Obviously, all those security items are in our best interest as well. We want to make sure that it's maintained properly. So, definitely.
I think flock is in the public right away, though.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Can we have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
The picture that you just, or the plan that you had just submitted to us, and the one that we are looking at, it looks a little bit different. So this is the one that we will be designing the buildings?
Submitting.
Okay. With a bigger window. You're right, because they do look different.
Can you explain the difference? Can you just explain the difference, Sarah?
Yes. What we've done is that we added more landscaping. We changed the windows. There was also a comment regarding the railing. We did change it. We changed the parapet that's on the top of the building, and we, put the tile, the terracotta. So we did change a lot of the materials, but we made absolutely sure that, we kept within the height. That was our biggest challenge, because if we would have gone over the height, then it would have triggered something else, and God knows we don't want to do that. We want to make sure this gets built. So, yeah.
Great.
But we did incorporate all the comments that were made.
And when do you expect to break ground?
As soon as we can.
Correct.
We're going to start, if we get approval today, we'll go at risk and start our construction drawings. Hopefully, the community's supportive of it. We can get through the appeal portion of it, and then we can get started. I mean, the economy is so crazy that if you don't do that, things can change.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
you. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll now hear testimony in favor. Anyone want to speak in favor here? Any testimony against or opposed? Okay, we'll now close public hearing and open discussion by the commission. I will now open commission discussion. Commissioner Lewis.
I will motion to approve precise plan number 20-02, specifically resolution number 23-6130, pertaining to that precise plan, as amended for this meeting.
And I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Lewis and seconded by Chair Gutierrez. Commissioner Heng?
Well, before I vote on it, I just want to make sure that because the package that we received looks a little bit different than the one that we just got handed in, and we are approving the one that we're...
I believe that was the motion to approve as amended for tonight.
Okay. All right. Yes. That would be aye then. And thank you so much for improving all the building. It really does look so much better. Thank you.
So Commissioner Hing?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams?
Aye.
And Chair Gutierrez?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. This action is final unless appealed to the City Council within 10 days.
It's a recommendation to the City Council.
What?
It's final.
Just kidding.
She wants you to go to another meeting.
I apologize.
It's okay. Okay. We'll now move on. We'll now move on to precise plan number 23-06, category exception, with the applicant Envision Motors, located at 205 North Citrus Avenue. And we'll call on the applicant, the Vice President General Counsel, Andrew Beza. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we're
going to go back. Sorry. We have to go back. We're going to open up staff report first.
Miriam Machado will be providing the staff report for the
Great. Thank you.
Alrighty. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Precise Plan 2306 for the property located at 205 North Citrus Street. The precise plan being requested is to allow for the expansion to an existing dealership building of 13,130 square feet. The lot size is 2.2 acres, and it's located on the northwest corner of North Citrus Street and East Garvey Avenue North, and it is surrounded by commercial and residential uses. This is just a photograph of the existing site, which was previously a Nissan dealership that was vacated. The applicant and his team did hire a CEQA consultant, which is Ultra Systems, which determined that the proposed project is considered to be categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15332, which is Class 32 for infill development projects, as it met all the necessary requirements, which are listed out here on the screen. This is their proposed site plan. The rear setback would remain at the 245 feet, as nothing is being added at the rear. The north setback would also remain at 61 feet and 11 inches. The south setback, closest to the property line, would remain at 52 feet, and the new setback where the addition is being added would have an 89-foot, 2-inch setback. And the front setback, which would be from the new covered entrance, has a 122-foot and 6-inch setback from the front property line. For their floor plan for the first floor will consist of a showroom, a customer lounge, a vehicle delivery area, offices throughout the entire first floor, a parts storage room and a parts retail area, restrooms, and a service reception and service advisors location. As for the second floor, it's going to have a parts storage room, a couple more offices, restrooms, a break room, and a training room. The remaining sections are open to the first floor. For their front and rear elevations, the one on the top is the front elevation, the one on the bottom is the rear elevation. The highest point for the building as a whole would be 49 feet and 6 inches in height. And here are the side elevations, again with the highest point being 49 feet and 6 inches. This morning, the Planning Division did receive a letter in opposition for the project. This letter was forwarded to the Planning Commission via email, and then it was also given prior to this meeting. The letter expressed concerns for the approval of the project due to existing conditions that cause flooding on the site. However, the applicant did provide a response or for that letter in opposition, which was also forwarded for the Planning Commission to review. Given that the proposal meets all zoning requirements, planning staff is recommending adopting Resolution 236131, approving Precise Plan 2306. I am available for any questions, and then we also have the applicant and his team here for any questions and concerns.
Thank you for the staff report. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any questions for staff?
Chair, if I may, as a means of clarification, Ultra Systems is the city's environmental consultant. I just wanted to clarify that, and they report directly to the city. However, we do have a CEQA guideline that requires the applicant, or that allows the applicant to select the CEQA consultant that is going to be used from a list of pre-approved city council list. And the CEQA consultant is required to be paid directly by the applicant. However, this Ultra Systems, the CEQA consultant, reports directly to the city. All of their work has been approved by the city and the city alone.
Great, thank you. I will now open the public hearing. And we're now here testimony from the applicant, Andrew Beza.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As was stated, there was an opposition filed, and we did provide a written response. If you have any questions, I'm more than welcome to try and answer. But the gist of what happened is we acquired this issue. It was at one point in time, the water that was flowing, it didn't flood at one point in time. There were holes in the bottom of the wall that would flow into the other property. From our understanding, that was an agreement between the then property owners on both lots. And when on the southern lot they began construction, they stopped up the holes. They blocked those holes off, which then is what caused flooding, because now there was nowhere for the water to flow. We understand that that now that we have the property, we have control of the property, that we have an obligation to make sure that we remedy the issue. We don't want standing water. It's not good for the city. It's not good for us either. We can't have a bunch of cars parked in 3 feet of water. So as a part of our plan, we have there's a part in there to deal with the irrigation and the flooding, to make sure that there is removal of that water and then collection of stormwater. It's a part of our plan. And so we think that the opposition really kind of misses the point on where we're at. And if we were to delay moving forward with the project, it's really just going to delay getting a resolution to the issue that they raise. Is there any questions that you have for me? I also have our architect here who could provide probably a little bit more detailed, more technical response. I can tell you in general, I'm not an architect, so I can't tell you the more detailed stuff, but he can speak to that if you need that as well.
Great. Does any members of the commission have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Lewis?
I have a quick question regarding the letter dated October 9th from, I believe, representative of Diamond City Shopping Center, LLC. It seems they're indicating, and I don't know if this is just a question for you, but maybe also a question for staff. It says that the city does not seem to get any cooperation in repairing the condition either, end quote. And so I'm trying to figure out, has there been any contact with your entity pertaining to this issue and the city?
There was. So there was initially some contact from the city back, I'd want to say, sometime late last year when the rains first started. We were contacted. At that time, we weren't in control of the property. We were in the process of trying to obtain control of the property. There's a dispute between us and the property owner and the prior tenants. So because we weren't controlling it, there wasn't much we could do. We made sure to notify the landlord. And by the time anything was going to be resolved, the rains had stopped and the water had dried up. So there wasn't anything to be done again. It became an issue more recently again when Tropical Storm Hillary came through, we immediately, we couldn't do a full-fledged remediation. We had that as part of our plan. So what we did was we went and got a pump to pump water out to the drainage out on the street. So we did what we could to remedy it in a temporary fashion. We never meant for this pump and to have it there with hoses as a permanent solution to the plan. That was a temporary solution so that we didn't have standing water there. We understand the issues with standing water and want to get that off the lot. But as we move forward, once we get into our construction, we're going to deal with it in a more permanent way with actual, drainage through the underground and piping and everything like that.
Understood. So during Tropical Storm Hillary, this was not a flooding issue.
It did fill up, but once the rain stopped and we got out there, we removed the water relatively quickly.
And right now there's a sump pump.
There's a sump pump. It's a strange situation from my understanding. So there's what looks like a gutter that goes down and water goes in there, but there's actually no, underground piping for that water to go anywhere. There's a pump in there to pump it out, and what it would do is would pump it along that south wall. And because there were holes in the wall, the water would just flow out and flow to the other side. So once that was stopped up, it basically just pumps the water back up, and then it just flows right back onto the lot. It sits there. So that's why we obtained the pump. We have the pump. We bought the pump. So if it rains again and there's a significant amount of rain, we have the ability to get the standing water off, at least until we get our permanent solution in place.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Vice Chair Williams, any comments?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Becerra?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Yang?
I actually have a question, though, regarding the sump pump and the motor is not working. And I'm not sure if there's a discrepancies or the understanding of when, I'm not sure about the level and the elevations of that particular lot between those two lots, whether it's one, if it's a lower elevation, that's why there's sort of like a catch basin at that area and then being pumped out. Now, according to what I didn't get to hear what he had to say. I only can read what he wrote. And basically they're saying that the motor was not working properly. And I completely understand that you just acquired the property as well. So I guess the question is, moving on, is that portion, I'm not sure if at this stage that we can work it out so that there's no flooding issues that's happening. Cities do not take care of flooding.
Understood.
Okay? So
again, as it stands, what we have until we get the ability to do our complete plan with stormwater collection and the water to flow out, we have a pump to get the water off there and get it into along the street and into the gutters. Again, it's a temporary solution so that if it does rain, we can't stop it from flooding if there's enough rain, but we can get the water off. And that's, again, our temporary solution until we're able to break ground and get into construction and work as a part of our plan.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could add to that, sorry. So this is the entitlements from planning. So it's about the facade improvements. Once they submit into building for the building permits, they'll go through engineering as well, and that's when they'll address these concerns.
Great, thank you. Okay, no more questions. Thank you. We'll now move on to hear testimony from those in favor. There's two more from the applicant. Or any members of the applicant's party want to speak on this? No? No? Okay, great. Okay, we'll now move on to anyone who's opposed to the project. Seeing none, we'll now close the public hearing and open discussion by the commission. I will now open commission discussion. Commissioner Lewis.
I'm good.
Vice Chair Williams.
At this point, if the potential operator is going to put in the necessary improvements in order to handle the drainage, I think that would be very much welcomed.
Commissioner Becerra.
I think it's a win-win. We had a very nice dealership and a problem that's already existing to be remedied. So,
Commissioner Yang?
Give me one sec. I think it's a great project. However, I do like to see if I know the hydrology, when we move on to the second department, the building department, the hydrology reports or what have you will dictate of how to handle the water issue. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that we can put something regarding that, to take care of the water in the future, moving onward. I'm sure that I hope that it would be taken care of by the engineering department, the hydrology report that they probably have to do. Is there any way that we can kind of incorporate that in there somehow? It could be redundant, but I like to be able to add that in. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion or a second?
I guess if there's no more discussion, go ahead.
Motion to adopt resolution number 23-6133, adopting or approving precise plan number 23-06.
I like to second that with the additions of making sure that the water is taken care of.
So, Commissioner Hang, if I could point you to Building Division Condition of Approval J, where it requires that a grading and drainage plan be approved by the engineering division prior to issuance of the building permit.
Okay.
Does that satisfy your concern?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So, the motion on the table, we have a first for approval.
Yeah, we have a motion by Commissioner Lewis and a second by Commissioner Yang. Paulina, roll call. Can you clarify the resolution and roll call?
So the resolution is resolution number 23-6133. And then it was a motion by Commissioner Lewis, seconded by Commissioner Gutierrez. Did I get that right? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Commissioner Yang.
Commissioner Yang. So Commissioner Yang?
Yes. Commissioner Heng.
Sorry, Heng. Sorry. You messed me up. Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner Becerra.
aye.
Vice Chair Williams.
Aye.
And Chair Gutierrez.
Abstain.
Okay. So 4-1, motion passes.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on to General Plan Amendment number 23-02, Zone Change number 23-02, Code Amendment Development Code Update number 23-01, Initial Study, Negative Declaration of Environmental Impact, Location Citywide. Paulina, who would do the staff report on this?
John Moreland, our consultant from Rincon, will be presenting the staff report for you this evening.
Great, thank you.
Which item is this?
So they're setting up, I just wanted to mention this has been an ongoing project that staff has been working with the consultant on and with our subcommittees, which I know some of our commissioners were on that subcommittee. So we're excited to be presenting this for you guys tonight and moving forward with completing the development code update.
Thank you, Paulina. Commissioners, Chairman, my name is John Moreland. I'm with Rincon Consultants. I just wanted to have the opportunity to thank you and thank the city for allowing us to work on this project. It's come a long way. And tonight I'm going to have our planner, Susan Hernandez, provide the presentation. Susan?
Good evening, Commissioners. I will be presenting this project, which is a recommendation for the Planning Commission to adopt Resolution 23-6134, 6135, 6136, and 6137, recommending to the City Council to adopt the initial study and negative declaration, General Plan Amendment Number 02, Zone Change Number 2302, and Code Amendment Number 2301. So the Development Code update began May 2021. Following that, the consultants conducted research, created a website, conducted subcommittee meetings with city decision makers, and held outreach meetings with the public. As mentioned, various forms of outreach were conducted. A website was created to post updates of the progress and information of when and where meetings would be held, as well as updates on the environmental documents that were prepared.
I'm sorry, can you put the speaker closer to you so we can hear it a little bit better? Thank you.
In 2022, public outreach meetings were held with each of the 5 districts between March 13th and March 30th. These meetings were held in person, and one of these meetings was held in person and live streamed. Surveys were conducted to gain input from the public regarding the zoning code, such as for parking, commercial uses, drive-throughs, development standards, and planning procedures. An outreach list was also created with a list of residents, business owners, and others that were interested in keeping up to date with the development code process. They were also sent email updates throughout this process. So generally, the Development Code update is pertaining to Chapter 26 of the Zoning Code, and it was reorganized into 8 articles. We will go over some of the highlights of some of these articles later in this presentation. Articles that are not specifically mentioned in the highlight slides generally stayed the same. Additionally, the Development Code updates included the integration of Chapter 20 subdivision regulations into Chapter 26. As you can see here, that subdivision article was added as Article 8. Now to go over some of the highlights. So first, Article 1, enactment and applicability, generally was kept the same with the general provisions and definitions. Some of the definitions were updated to be consistent with the rest of the updates. Now to go into Article 2, residential highlights. So this article was updated to include the removal of area districts for single-family residential zones and establish minimum lot width, minimum lot depth, and minimum lot area criteria. The requirement and process for large homes and large additions were removed. Permit requirements and allowable residential uses were revised, mainly to streamline the processes to be consistent with state housing laws. This included the removal of the CUP requirement for mobile homes to be permitted by right, but still requiring a precise plan. We expanded the definition of group home to allow those with 6 or fewer occupants in single-family and multifamily zones per state law. They would require CUPs for larger facilities in higher intensity multifamily zones. And finally, we also added farm worker and employee housing per state law. Article 2 also contained uses and regulations for non-residential uses. So we renamed various existing zones, such as the office professional, neighborhood commercial, regional commercial, and service commercial zones to office professional mixed use, neighborhood commercial mixed use, regional commercial mixed use, and service commercial mixed use. So generally adding mixed use to these existing commercial zones. We also rezoned medium commercial, the C2 zone, and heavy commercial zones to NMU and SMU. New uses were added to the land use table, such as craft manufacturing, craft breweries. In the most recent addition of the municipal code update, we prohibited drive-throughs. We'll go over this later in a later slide. We incorporated standards for residential development in mixed-use zones, for commercial mixed-use and office mixed-use zones, as the mixed-use overlay was removed. Also, commercial parking landscapes requirements were updated. In the previous code for West Covina, or the one that's currently active, West Covina required 1 tree per 10 parking spaces. The proposed requirements for landscaping for parking lots will require 1 tree for every 6 parking spaces, or 1 tree for every 10 parking spaces, with an increase in the required landscaping to a lot coverage, landscape coverage of 12%. Article 3, regulations applicable to all zones, was updated. This section contains various regulations such as parking regulations and general development standards. Some of the updates here include parking space dimensions, which are now included in this section of the code, and it includes graphics and tables to better illustrate parking. Restaurant parking was simplified to just require 1 space for every 100 square feet of gross floor area. Outdoor dining does not require parking for the first 500 square feet of outdoor dining area per business. And medical office parking was decreased to 1 space for every 250 square feet. Formerly, it was 1 space for every 150 square feet of gross floor area. We also increased the requirement for multifamily guest parking, now requiring 1 space for every 4 units. Article 4. So Article 4, specific land uses, was updated to allow for and add regulations for new types of uses. So as previously mentioned, craft manufacturing facilities, distilleries, so as to better align with ABC regulations. Outdoor dining requirements were added, which includes landscaping, setbacks, location requirements, as well as public right-of-way requirements. EV charging and solar carport requirements were added, such as design and location requirements. Hotel, motel conversion requirements, parking and landscaping and maintenance requirements were added for that. Density bonus requirements were updated to reflect recent state laws and to better define concessions and waivers. And the development code, I just also wanted to add that the development code also reflects recent city council adoptions, such as for service station alcohol sales and shopping cart regulations. So for just quickly go over Article 5, nonconformities, that one generally stayed the same. Very few updates were made to that. And now jumping into Article 6 for permit processing and procedures. This article was simplified. It simplified the number of applications. This was predominantly to simplify administrative processes. We increased the public notification requirement from 300-foot radius from project site to 500-foot radius and 1,000-foot radius for wireless facilities. We also replaced newspaper posting requirements for development applications with on-site posting. Again, going over quickly, Article 7, Zoning Code Administrative, that one generally stayed the same with very few updates. Article 8, Subdivision Code, included an update to increase the park dedication requirement for subdivisions from 3.0 acres per 1,000 residents of the subdivision to 3.2 acres. We reduced the reviewing authority of parcel maps. So previously from Planning Commission to the Community Development Director instead. Revisions also include flag lot requirements, such as the limitation on the number of residential flag lots and the design requirements for flag lots. Now going into drive-throughs. So, in the current rendition of the municipal code, drive-throughs are not permitted. We did receive one comment about the drive-throughs, but there are possible regulations to add if you wanted to allow drive-throughs, such as location requirements, not allowing them within 500 feet from the Interstate 10 freeway, 500 feet from another drive-through facility, and 50 feet from residential. Other possible regulations may include queuing lengths and designs, landscaping, and ensuring that drive-through facilities are pedestrian friendly. Now going into the other resolutions. So for the zoning map change, it includes a zoning map change from these lots, which are currently public building, and they would be changed to open space. Another zoning map change includes the zone change of these lots from planned industrial to service commercial. Now going into the general plan amendments. So the general plan amendments includes an amendment to the land use map for the land use change of these parcels from neighborhood low to parks and open space. And these parcels from civic and institutional to commercial.
What does that mean? Sorry. What do you mean from civic to commercial?
So in the second image there, they were originally civic and institutional zoned or land use in the general plan, and they're being changed to commercial.
Where is this located at?
This is on, let's see, Garvey Avenue, and what's the cross street here?
It's West Garvey Avenue North. It's the college and the western portion of the city. Pacific College.
Garvey and what?
Let me get that. Northwestern.
So it's where Northwestern College,
Or
those
Northwest
properties.
College. Yeah, that's Northwestern.
And is there a reason why we're doing this?
The intent of this change is this was the only zoning designation of this type in the city. It was essentially a zoning that was created for this property. For the general plan amendment, in terms to be consistent, we recommend a general plan amendment change to commercial, which is consistent with the zones along West Garvey Avenue North in the area. It's the college does exist.
But for the civic portion, which is the blue portion, is that the blue portion civic it's for city use, but we're converting it to commercial use?
So they have a specific, if I'm getting this right, John, that zoning is specific to those properties. We're generalizing it with other uses within the city, or the land use that's used throughout the other cities or throughout the rest of the city. So it's consistent, and there's not one specific to these properties.
So would the college then end up becoming non-conforming, or would it be a possible use that would be allowed in the commercial zone?
Mm-hmm. It is a permitted use in the service commercial zone, so it would not be a legal non-conforming use.
So it'd still be allowed in that zone.
But before it was dedicated to civic and institutional, right?
Do they have a say?
Those would be the type
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just say that I think when you change civic or even a park space or civic, it creates a big thing for the community. So, and let's just say if I forgot the college name there, but if the college wanted to sell itself one day and there's a business that wants to move in, can they apply for a a code amendment to the zoning?
Depending on the use, they wouldn't need to because it's commercial, so it would actually expand what's allowed on that property as far as uses go.
Mm-hmm. Well, my concern is preserving, obviously, the education or the civic definition for that.
They can still have a school there that use would still be allowed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
However, if their school application expired, then they're no longer allowed?
This does not terminate the right for them to use that property for school or for educational purposes. That use is still allowed in commercial zoning. Yeah, so we have other tutoring businesses in our commercial center, so it would still be an allowed use. Like I said, if anything, it would expand the type of uses allowed on that property. Civic is mostly like the property here. It's civic because it's City Hall, right? So, and we have the courts. It would limit it if you wanted to open up a City Hall there. I guess that would be a limiting factor, right, John?
That's a big thing when it comes to the community.
I'd love to build a new City Hall.
That's the problem I'm having.
Actually, if it was
changing it to commercial eliminates the civic part. I mean, it doesn't necessarily eliminate it, but you're now redefining what that zone is, which was specifically meant for civic or educate, whatever it's called, civic or institutional education. And this, so
we essentially. The existing zoning designation, and it came from the existing zoning designation, not necessarily the general plan designation, but this was actually planned industrial and is the only property with a planned industrial designation in the entire city. It's adjacent to residential and adjacent to the freeway, and predominantly in the city, most of the existing zoning designations are service commercial. And we felt that designation would be a broader approach and allowed for additional variety, including colleges, which is why we proposed it. And the general plan designation, we felt that was it was more appropriate, as other private colleges in the city are generally on a commercial designation.
Right, and. Great. And then did you get input from the current institution that's there regarding the change?
We've been asking for input, so we have had the document open for public comment. So it's been available to the community at large to provide comments on the proposed changes.
Are these final? They're already...
We're bringing them for you guys for consideration tonight.
Who owns the lot there? Is it owned by that college, or is it owned by a private owner? A different owner from the college?
I believe it's the college. The college has been there for, I don't know how long, but they've been there.
City staff confirm that? Because I mean, if you change something to commercial, next thing you know, the owners evicted them so they could get a big commercial business to move in there. So I just want to clarify that. Do we know if that's owned by the college?
What
land?
Is it currently planned?
I believe that it is owned by the college because remember a few months ago there was a church that applied for a conditional use permit to expand the church, and they had an agreement with the college to use their parking lot, and the recorded agreement that they had at that time was signed by the college. So that shows that the college owns that land.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So the environmental review for this project, it was reviewed under CEQA guidelines. An initial study negative declaration was prepared. The project was analyzed for each of the environmental issues provided in the CEQA environmental checklist. The ISND draft was subject to a 20-day public review period, which began August 28th and ended September 17th. The ISND was sent to all 52 people on the project interest list and to various other agencies. 3 comments were received during this comment period time. The comments included a comment letter from a resident asking for clarification on the R1 zones. We provided a response to them and provided clarification. In addition, the zoning map was updated just to better show the different R1 zones. We also received a comment letter from LA Metro in which they stated that they operate a rail line adjacent to the city and that developers adjacent to this line should reach out to LA Metro. We do not think that this is necessary to be in the code, but we will mention this in our checklist guidelines that will be prepared later for the city. And finally, we also received a comment regarding the drive-through regulations, and the commenter provided various suggestions on how we should revise the regulations. And the final ISND was posted on September 29th. So it is recommended that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 236134, 236135, 236136, and resolution number 236137, recommending that the City Council adopt the initial study and negative declaration, the General Plan Amendment number 2302, Zone Change number 2302, and the Code Amendment number 2301. We are available for any questions.
Great. Thank you for the staff report. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? Commissioner Lewis?
Just given how many people are not here, I think it would just be faster if we get through the public hearing portion of it, and then if the chair would indulge me, and then we can have a discussion at that point.
Great. Anyone else has comments for staff?
I did have a comment or a question. The 500-foot radius, is that from property line or is that from the structure?
Sorry. In regards to the public notification?
Yes.
Yes, so that would be from the project site, so the property line.
The property line. Okay. And then there was another one right after that. Was it
house
1,000 feet
for wireless facilities?
Okay, I thought it was proposed for 1,500 feet.
I can chime in on that. We felt that
Right.
when we looked at the comparisons of the analogs for wireless facility notifications, the higher end was 1,000 feet. I know that 1,500 feet was one of the potential options that we had discussed as part of the subcommittee, but ultimately it was 1,000 feet from the property lines.
But with this particular study sessions, we can actually recommend it's for 1,500. Is that?
Well, the part of the item before you is a recommendation to City Council. The Planning Commission would want to consider an increase in that notification requirement. Then you can. I would recommend kind of including that as part of the recommendation. And we could forward that to City Council.
We did. We were in code update, and we agreed for 1,500, which is actually what Walnut was having in theirs too. So it is
1,500. 1,500 was mentioned. However, part of the direction was to look at what the other cities were doing. And in that research, the most that the city found, or the most that the city's consultant found, was 1,000 feet.
I don't think.
But ultimately, we can recommend to increase to 1,500.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the staff report. We're now open public hearing. One at a time, guys. One at a time. Okay. We're now hear testimony and those in favor.
Can we show the screens to the public hearing? Or at least, is that something that we can do?
Let's show the whole audience. That's why it's important that you show up. No, that's the way this it goes. Hear testimony for those opposed. Great. We're now closed public hearing.
Can I add something first? This is a code amendment change that's affecting all the properties in the city of West Covina. And I wanted to add that we don't have anyone that shows up to oppose or to approve for the code amendment.
So we'll start that with commissioner comments. Anything else, Commissioner Hain?
It's a lot. And I guess one of the things that I was not clarified is regarding the solar panel, that you can increase the heights by 5 more feet. Is that? Somewhere in here. It's like what? It's a whole 2-inch thick code amendment that we are going through.
It's a big document. It's been a big undertaking.
So
it's a lot of information to absorb.
I want to say that's about. So yes, that is correct regarding solar energy systems such as panels. This is on page 106 of the draft language. I'm trying to get a section number. So it's in Article 3, regulations that are applicable to all zones, and essentially it's part of the height projections that are allowed to go above the height limit. So essentially solar panels that would be roof mounted would be allowed to go exceed the height limit by up to 5 feet.
On our copy, we can't see 106. We can only see the first 2 digits.
Oh, it would be the second page of Article 3. So Article 3, Division 1. So it would probably be right where page 10, I would think, would probably start in your document.
About how many millimeters through the document are we talking?
It's going to be right in the the third. It's 105. So section 26, so the section numbers, which would be in the left-hand column on the hard copy, would be, it's 26-65. And then paragraph C. Mm-hmm.
26-65. I don't see that.
No. It's the one with the picture of a house.
The page after.
They have a drawing of a house. And 2665 talks about the height measurement and exceptions. And it is page 3.
Yep.
It's the number that we see after.
It's going to be, if you see page 72, go to page 72 and then flip the page twice. And you'll be there. Mm-hmm. It's on the back side.
Yeah, I do want to mention, I believe you have the strike-through version, so the formatting and page numeration.
So I guess extending 5 feet, is there any particular reason behind that?
The reason and the thought process behind that was with the most recent Cal Green Code update, which are updates to the building code that occur every 18 months, essentially for commercial or residential construction. The most recent one essentially mandated the installation of solar panels on multifamily buildings. The intent of state law is to also require that for commercial buildings in the future as well too. So we felt, especially to maximize solar orientation, as well as allowing compliance with that requirement to allow for moderate exception to the height requirement.
So you're saying that if it's on a flat roof, they can actually go up 5 more feet because the slope for the 412 or 312 slope that the solar panel needed. Is that kind of the ideas behind?
Correct. On a flat roof, to essentially maximize generally the south or southeast facing orientation, which is most desirable for solar panels. Whatever kind of angle that's appropriate for the solar panel that was selected by the future developer or builder.
Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Becerra? Any comments?
Huh?
Any comments?
I already did.
Okay. Vice Chair Williams?
One question I did have, since we're rolling the subdivision code into the development code, I'm assuming that the underlining state regulation will still be the Subdivision Map Act. So the Director of Community Development would be working in hand with the city engineer, what have you, when it comes to the approval of parcel maps?
Yes, that is correct. Okay. In general, in terms of the general internal process, that was essentially just carried over from the existing code into Article 8.
Oh, okay. Now, does the Subdivision Map Act now encourage flag lots in residential areas?
It's my understanding that it's essentially silent on the creation of flag lots.
Okay. I did notice that you did provide a drawing showing how it could be done. Are you suggesting that if the city decides to allow that on residential lots, that perhaps don't allow any more than one flag lot? And I'm referring to page 26. It shows a drawing showing what I guess is supposed to be a residential neighborhood block. And they show the sides where there are streets.
Correct. That exhibit is in the definition section and is essentially to illustrate the definitions of a variety of different lots that could occur. Mm-hmm. We do include provisions for flag lots. I can point those to you. Just give me a second to point to the correct section. So in Article 8, it would be Section 26 -299. There are 3 paragraphs about the use of flag lots. Mm-hmm. Essentially,
So there is a limitation on the number of flag lots within a subdivision, just to avoid the overconcentration of like having a flag lot next to a flag lot next to a flag lot.
Mm-hmm. And the aisle width that is being suggested would be 20 feet?
That is correct.
Okay.
And also there would be a prohibition that one flag lot cannot be created next to another flag lot.
Okay.
And those, and do want to point out that those would be at least the limitation of the number and the adjacency or newer provisions for the subdivision for this code update.
Okay. How does that provision or prohibitions affect SB 9? I believe that is the code for.
Correct. With SB 9, the process that we took with SB 9 is essentially incorporated the city's current ordinance and essentially just incorporated as it stands today into the code. The SB 9 subdivision requirements would essentially kind of supersede this section since they're for small urban infill lots. So anything that's compliant with the SB 9 ordinance would apply.
So SB 9 would supersede this particular code that we're discussing right now?
These are the requirements for standard lot subdivisions. There is a separate subdivision section for urban lot splits.
Great. Your Commissioner, Vice Chair, you're done? Okay. Commissioner Lewis?
Sure, I have a lot of questions. Took a good deal of time going through this and wanted to address one of the changes in the maximum height in R1 and residential agricultural zoned locations. So we would be increasing that to 45 feet now. Is that correct?
Can you point to which section that would be, Commissioner?
It would be in section...
I can't see the page, so...
26-54.
Thank you.
Is that accurate? It's supposedly page 56. I don't know if that's accurate or not. $26.54, yeah.
Three stories.
Trying to
So I guess R1 in the certain sections, like along Azusa area, or I forgot, I think it's Azusa, that would be R1. However, those R1 are much more dense than other areas.
the development standard, and we can add this clarification to 26-54. But the intent is this is essentially for multifamily development, not single family.
Well, but it says maximum, sub H says maximum building height when within 100 feet So I just want to make sure, am I reading this wrong in terms of its applicability, or I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding it. There's unfortunately the copy that I have is not very clear.
And the font is really small.
Yeah, the intent of that section is height limitation when development is adjacent to single family or the RA zone. This language is the same height limitation essentially that is in the current mixed use overlay right now.
Understood. Okay, I just want to make sure that I was clear on that. So this is so this code amendment would not increase the maximum height for development of single family residences. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're staying with 25 then, right?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
I think if you look on item number 2, it basically said all buildings containing any residential use shall be limited to 45 feet, except within the area bounded by Citrus Street to the west, Workman Street to the north, Barranca Avenue to the east, and the interstate to the west. So those can be higher to 85 feet.
Got it. And then switching gears to 26-75. It deals with measurement of fence or wall height. Now, frankly, as I read this will work great in Kansas, but I don't really understand how this is going to work particularly well on the eastern side of West Covina or the southern side. We're measuring height based on the lowest property level. So effectively, somebody who has a significant grade separation is stuck with a 6-foot high fence on their neighbor's side and maybe 2-foot high on their side. Is that what this is going to do?
That is correct. So in areas where there's a difference in essentially pad heights or lot heights between, the measurement of height would be essentially to 6 feet, and it would be measured from the lowest elevation. So if there was a 2-foot pad height difference, effectively it would be a 4-foot tall fence on the other side.
Does that make sense to you? Well, I'm just going to say it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
But is the drawing saying that the wall's going to be on that separate lot, not necessarily
It's
on the property
It's on the
line?
property line.
Yes, that's how it's measured. However, if there's a grade differential, there is a section that regulates freestanding fences and also fences on top of retaining walls. So for fences on top of retaining walls, although we measure a height of freestanding, any freestanding fence or any fence that doesn't require a building permit the maximum height would be 6 feet from lowest adjacent grade to the top of the wall. However, if there is a fence, freestanding fence, retaining wall combination, depending on the nature of who's constructing the fence, if it's going to, or retaining wall and where it's facing, would determine the height, the overall height. For instance, if it's an outward facing retaining wall where the retaining wall faces the neighboring property, they would be allowed is it 4 feet?
Interior facing? It's the 12.
Exterior facing. Oh, yes. I think it's 4 feet, right?
3 feet.
3 feet. Okay. So they would be allowed up to 3 feet along the front property line, and with a 6-foot tall freestanding wall on top, by right.
By right, they would be allowed that. Okay, so that would, and that's not a permit requiring scenario.
A building permit would be required, yes, because anything above 6 feet by building code requires a building permit.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that this is clear because it leaves a lot to be desired in that regard. I also want to point out that the current code provision says that you can get an administrative use permit over the counter to go up to 7 feet. And this takes that away effectively. So why does this make sense?
Yeah, no, we essentially wanted to essentially simplify the process, but if the Planning Commission wanted to add essentially the administrative provision for the additional foot and height, that could be something that could be added.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I see people build these ultra tall fences throughout our city, and frankly, this commission has given substantial deference on that issue. Substantial. I may not agree with that substantial deference, but we've given that substantial deference, so I think it should be codified as a matter of right.
And I do want to mention too that essentially in an interior condition, and essentially that would be larger lots. This is on section 26-77.
26, I'm sorry?
26-77. That's essentially the provisions that regulate retaining walls and items where there's change of grade. Essentially, it does allow provisions for up to where a retaining wall protects a cut below the natural grade. Essentially, the cut side shall not exceed 15 feet. So this is essentially that allows for a much more substantial kind of alteration. That's where we kind of saw also to the difference where there could be some flexibility. This isn't necessarily a property line fence; it's more internal. So that's, and this is that provision isn't in the existing code. Essentially, paragraph C.
Well, I think we should change it to 7 feet as a matter of right.
Okay.
Are we making the changes now?
I'm just going through and giving my. I would love to make those recommendations tonight if we can. I have a number of other things I want to go through though, because again, this is very important. I'm not of the opinion that this should be glossed over and just voted on. I mean, this is something that we haven't done in many, many years, and obviously there are issues.
For a bit of background, the 6 foot the 6 foot maximum height is what's currently allowed by right. So when we looked at the code standards on fences, we were a bit more conservative and said maximum 6 feet. We didn't like, I guess staff had issues or problems with the fact that in the past, neighbors were fighting each other, and they were utilizing the Planning Commission and staff to resolve their fence issues. So we basically just simplified it 6 feet. But if the Planning Commission wishes to allow 7 feet by right, then that would be.
I agree, and that's my point. We've decided those disputes before. I don't want to do it again. So. Build it up. That's how I think. As far as, let's see, switching to 26-109 regarding alcohol beverage sale establishments. I do want to make sure that with regard to standards for revocation, that we include some sort of standard for revocation of an alcohol beverage sales license, and I think, given the fact that we've just had a hearing on that, we can probably just adopt the standards that we've set forth as the minimum baseline. That would be my recommendation. I do have I do have a few more questions with regard to 26-117. Is pertaining to emergency shelters. I'm trying to go as quickly as I can so that we're not here all night. I'm a little concerned about this requirement for emergency shelters. It's in A subdivision 2. Clients must vacate the facility by 8 a.m. and have no guaranteed bed for the next night. I guess I'm just concerned. Is this something that could perhaps encourage loitering in the area because people are, in the event that we establish an emergency shelter and the poor individual is in a bind and has to stay on site, just to guarantee that they have a spot for the next night. I would want to remove that requirement because hopefully if someone's in that kind of in that kind of need, we would want to encourage them to have shelter and, kind of not be in a position where they're effectively required to loiter in front of the facility until such time as the cutoff comes so that they can find a place to put their head that evening. I just think that's bad policy. So I'd like to remove that requirement if we can.
Sorry, can you repeat that requirement?
Sure. So it says that for an emergency shelter, there's no guaranteed bed for the next night. It's subdivision. It's 26-111, A sub 2. It's the second full sentence of that. Clients must vacate the facility by 8 a.m. and have no guaranteed bed for the next night. Again, I think that if the focus is on shelter, and we don't want to create a loitering problem, I feel like that's going to assure that we will have a loitering problem because people will want to make sure that they're there the following night. If they're in an emergency situation, they can't go back. That seems to be problematic to me.
Is that for residents or commercial properties?
No, this is for
emergency shelters. 26-117.
Midnight mission and things like that.
Oh, okay.
They are saying they would have to leave by 8 a.m. the next day. But like you said, if they're trying to make sure that they have a bed, then it may cause them to stay around in the area waiting because they want to hopefully be
and not be in a position where perhaps they want to go apply for a job. They have to get they have to go to an interview, and then they can't be back at a shelter the next night. I mean, it seems to me it's bad policy, but again, that's just my opinion.
But either way, if you allowed the temporary situations to be there, then they'll be there all the time.
So your concern is that we're
mentioned loitering. But
I would be concerned if obviously
emergency shelter.
The issue is that an emergency shelter may not be able to get someone into transitional housing immediately. Sometimes that's not available. I hope we have resources such that never happens in the city. But let's say hypothetically it does happen. Okay, my concern would be if somebody is in an emergency situation where they need shelter and they need to go, again, hypothetically, take care of a child, pick up a child from school, hypothetically, pick up or go to a job interview or something like that, such that they have to be back by a certain cutoff time in order to reserve their shelter for an emergency housing situation. I think that's a silly requirement. I think we should give some deference there, because if somebody is actually looking affirmatively for housing at that point in time, I think the shelter can make the decision if it's one of those issues where the person is not legitimately accepting help or whatever it is. I mean, this is the reason why we have the care courts and all that stuff that's coming. So that's not my concern. My concern is for the person who is legitimately trying to dig their way out of whatever financial strife that led to them being homeless. I don't want to see a situation where they're going to have to loiter in front of the midnight mission, or let's say hypothetically we had that in our city, I just think it's bad policy. Again, this is my 2 cents.
But I think that may be too broad, because sometimes some of those victims or emergency situations deal with domestic violence. And what we don't want to do is kick out a child or a mom and say, get out of our city. You can't wait to be housed. So,
well, this is saying that it's required that they have no guaranteed bed for the next night. That's what it's requiring.
I think they're confusing an emergency shelter with a homeless shelter. That's the difference.
They are.
Yeah, emergency is like with the weather, like in New York when the temperature
like a
gets
FEMA
below a certain.
Right.
Yeah, or
I guess the emergency shelter, is that for sleeping only at nighttime, or the durations of 24/7?
It's sleeping.
Yeah, so can you clarify what that means, city staff?
Just to clarify it, regarding this section, this section is already in the current code. So, however, if the Planning Commission wishes to remove it from the code, it's within your purview to recommend that to the City Council.
Okay.
John can explain further regarding the.
So the code says, clarify what the code says currently.
Yeah, essentially the difference between a permanent shelter and emergency shelter is emergency shelters for short-term use, sometimes usually during the winter months. A jurisdiction may want to open up an emergency shelter over a period of time, so it's not for an extended duration. But it is intended for the temporary shelter of the unhoused.
So is that like the one that St. Christopher used to have at the church?
I believe so. I'm not familiar with that one. Yes, Johnson. Yes.
That has to do with weather. Like he said, in some areas the temperature gets below freezing, and
right. Well, I know that it was a shelter that would transfer from church to church, all the way from here to Laura. It had different locations during the winter months.
Okay, and then going to the home occupation section 26-119. I think this is just a situation where this code provision just appears to be outdated. I'm looking at 26-119 A sub 9. There shall be no use of utilities or community facilities beyond that normal to the use of the property for residential purposes. Private telephone excluded. I think we ought to add fiber internet or something along those lines. I just think if we're saying that people are in non-conforming use because they're using a business internet line from Spectrum or Frontier, I think that's realistically. I think people would be here with pitchforks if that were ever really enforced.
Which one was that again?
Again, 26-19, entitled Home Occupation, A subdivision 9.
2619?
26-119.
119.
Oh, 119.
And it's number 9. Underneath
that. Since I read this entire thing, I just thought this one was kind of funny, and I don't want to waste any real time on it, but the 26-120 regarding massage parlors and health and beauty spas, I believe it's subdivision F4, says massage rooms shall not have any doors, but may cover the doorway with draped curtains. Now, I have zero desire to get into the prurient interest that I assume this is trying to prevent. But I will say I don't really know of any modern high-end health or massage health spas that don't have doors. I thought that was just kind of funny. Let's see. Going to 26-122, mobile services. And going specifically to the mobile services permitted, sub B 2, mobile services shall not include services that, quote, in the opinion of the community development Development Director would pose a negative impact upon nearby properties when provided. Now, again, I will say I quite trust Paulina's judgment in this, but I don't know that I'm going to trust the next person who occupies this position.
26 what? I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe as long as I'm alive. I don't know. 26-122, entitled Mobile Services, again, B sub 2. I guess my question is, why is there not an ascertainable standard or specific things that are set forth in that? Again, if we're updating this, I think I don't want to see something that becomes arbitrary. I mean, people working from home, if they let's say they want to get a car wash done while they're working at home, and the mobile car wash person comes up and the community development director says, no more mobile car washes. There are too many of them. I don't know, Paulina, maybe you have a strong opinion on that, or, but I think we should have some form of ascertainable standard in there. And I would appreciate some change in that.
What would cause this to be a problem? I mean, do you have a mobile doggy groomer, or?
Well, I personally don't use any mobile services that come to my house, other than
I do. I have a mobile car wash and a mobile doggy groomer.
But
I'll send them to your house.
but again,
what would be the problem?
But again, I don't view it as a problem. My concern would be is that if in the opinion of the community development director there's a problem, I don't know. I don't know what the standard is.
So what does it say? What's being changed?
I will read it verbatim. It says, mobile services shall not include services that, quote, in the opinion of the community development director would pose a negative impact upon nearby properties when provided. I don't know what that means.
Okay, that's, yeah.
And if you know what it means, more power to you.
We need some clarification.
Yeah, that may be too biased.
On mobile services, we won't want any mobile services that would constitute a nuisance. So excessive noise, but we can definitely modify that.
But if they're going through the daytime.
I was going to say, you do have, there are noise abatement provisions in the municipal code.
Exactly.
I think you could very easily cross-reference those or any other public nuisance so we have an ascertainable standard. I think that's what the residents deserve, not some arbitrary nebulous standard that doesn't mean anything.
And I'm going to highlight that because if a groomer comes and the vacuum's too loud, are you going to cite them and tell them get out of the city? So I think it's too broad, and I think for sure that should be taken out.
I don't think we should take it out. I think we can
ascertainable standard.
How about the window company who comes and washes your windows? That would be too loud for the neighbor next door. He's going to call the development.
How often do you get your windows washed?
Right.
I'm just saying, it's too broad. So.
That's not even a good one either.
Car wash or dog groomer.
None of those are.
I guess we can talk about that. I mean, I like that.
What complaints have been in the past that we would need this type of? Did we need to waste paper, or?
I don't know. It's been in the code for a long time, so we have a lot of things in the code that we don't actually enforce.
Well, that's currently in the code?
Yes.
Oh.
So this is not like this is being proposed. No, this is the law as it stands.
So what has this been violated? Is there something that we don't know about?
I don't know. We would have to ask the opinion of Paulina here. Has it ever been violated, in your opinion?
Not, no.
Well, just for the record, in the past, and I believe potentially presently, the city has not allowed mobile car washes, mainly because of mobile car washes that don't have a water collection system. Maybe because of the LID regulations.
Sure. Okay.
They exist.
That should be eliminated.
Yeah, they exist in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them. Okay. Is that because, in the opinion of the community development director, they've violated the law, or is it?
No, I think it has to do with the collection of wastewater after.
Not solely the community development director, but the city engineer, mainly because of the city's the state's LID regulations. So, which has to do with water runoff. Mm-hmm. If somebody from the state observes something, there's a potential that, and the city does allow that, there's a potential that the city can be cited. I believe it's up to $10,000 per day.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, one car, it's not going to... Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of cars there. I mean, like, okay, I got a dealership at my house, so let's wash all the cars.
And a lot of them carry their own tanks. Some of them recycle the water, too.
They carry the water, yes.
Yeah, some of them do. Mine does, actually.
But they cannot collect the water after they wash.
So you want them to be a food service car wash?
No. I mean, it has to do with some environmental issues that we can't just dump the water into the drain that goes to the ocean. So there's certain chemical they have to collect it and recycle them somehow.
I hear that LA County lets a lot of water go into the ocean, even our fresh water.
You know, there's soaps and whatnot that they can use.
So next, I was looking at the outdoor dining provision, which I'm not certain. I haven't double checked on this, but this is 26-124, just a couple pages over. So it says source new, but I'm not sure is this a new provision or
yes, that's
yes. Right. Okay, all right. I just had a couple of questions, and maybe this is just because, you know, I like to think big, but based on this, it would appear that you could never have a rooftop dining establishment because it would interfere with the. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for the provision. The outdoor dining area shall not be located in a manner which will, or shall be located in a manner which will not interfere with visibility, vehicular or pedestrian mobility, or access to city or public utility facilities. And I was just trying to figure out, so let's say we have above ground utilities in this city, predominantly. There's the south side of the city has a lot of underground in the residential area, but so effectively you couldn't have that because of the fact that it might interfere with the view of the utility poles. Is that my understanding? Or I mean, is that my understanding? Is that your understanding?
No, the intent here in terms of visibility is more the intent is having essentially the outdoor dining areas encroach into kind of parking areas and obstruct vehicular visibility of pedestrians and pedestrian visibility of motorists. I think we can reword that to make that a little clearer.
And then
how about public right of ways too, like pedestrian public sidewalks and so forth.
And then the other thing that I was kind of curious about is we have this hard cap at 25% of the restaurant's gross floor area, and I just want to. I mean, look, I don't know what restaurant or dining or dining area, but would potentially want to do this, but let's say there is a restaurant that wants to come in that wants to have more of an outdoor theme. We're capping them at 25% of the gross area of their floor space and I just have a question as to whether or not we have any play in that, such that let's say somebody did want to come in and do that. That would be an option. And that's A sub 1.
Yeah. On there, the intent was the 25% provision was essentially going to be essentially something that could be done by right with a lower threshold permit. And then above 25% would be something that would essentially be required for like a planning commission review.
Okay. So is that something that's just covered by? Would that be something that that somebody who wanted to do that would have to go before the planning commission, get a conditional use permit to go above and beyond that?
Correct, above the 25%.
Okay. Yes. All right. I don't know if there's a way we can or should make that easier, but
we can.
Well, I think if there's a trend in the future for outdoor dining, I think we should probably look at addressing that again in the future. I went through the remainder of it, and I think I'm okay with the rest of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Vice Chair Williams.
Yes, thanks. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to call a recess for 4 minutes. Okay. Planning Commission meeting is back from recess at 9:05 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll go back to Commission comments with Vice Chair Williams.
Okay. I did have a couple questions. Under the definition, I did notice when it came to adult-oriented activities and businesses that there were quite a few that were outlined. Is this because we already have these types of uses and we know what zones we want to allow them in?
On the definitions for this type of use, we essentially took it from the existing code, just because there are definite intricacies, and didn't adjust where they were permitted or currently allowed. So that hasn't changed throughout the city.
Okay, and is that the same case with the different cannabis uses as well under definition?
That is correct.
What cannabis?
That's on page 18.
Is that a new thing?
Cannabis is not cannabis uses is not allowed in the city.
Okay.
It's just that we specified and made it consistent with what current state law refers to these types of what they're called, basically.
Basically limiting it to not recreational, but to medical.
So is West Covina allowing medical marijuana in the city, or what can you clarify that?
There's no changes to the cannabis.
To the existing code? Okay.
We just merely included the definitions.
The marijuana is a state law, right? It's a state law.
Yeah, it is the state law.
You can use it, but you can't sell it or do business that incorporates that type of use.
At least in the city limits of West Covina. And that was what I was trying to understand. If there were specific zones that you either were going to suggest that these activities would be allowed.
Make people mad. They'll come. They'll come. You know what? Going back to the wireless, if you look at 26-34 and then go 2 pages over, because there's no number on that page or the one before. It does state here that telecommunications facilities and antennas shall not be located within 1,500 feet of a property with an existing facility or antenna measured from property. Now, what does that mean?
I'm sorry, what section is that?
I think 26-34?
26-134, and then
134.
You have to turn 2 pages.
2 pages?
Yes, 22-134, and then turn 2 pages, because there's no numbers on those pages. Okay.
You mean 26-135?
Sorry, 26-134, and then you have to turn
Commissioner, I will say, when it comes to telecommunications, there are federal laws that have to be taken into consideration, one of which is that you can't impose standards that are so stringent it makes it infeasible to construct it. So I would take that into consideration on your recommendation and considering the survey of what other jurisdictions are doing regarding that notification requirements, because that cost is being imposed on the provider.
Okay, so this actually says that it's not allowed, and then the antenna is allowed. It just contradicts itself. Am I not reading it right, Nick?
I'm seeing it as within an existing facility. So you can't put another one within 1,500 feet of an existing facility, which I think that's a reasonable standard. The other standard is if it's not within 1,500 feet, it shall be permitted. Shall be permitted within 500 feet of, or it shall not be permitted within 500 feet of surrounding single-family residences, or 100 feet of surrounding multifamily residential zones, and that's two double small I sub B.
Is that on the next page or the same one?
Same page.
Okay. Is that up above?
So you'll see location on property. So that's the two I'm talking about.
Okay.
Then double lowercase I, sub B under that.
But we can make recommendations to basically no freestanding wireless facility shall be permitted within, instead of 500 feet, we can also make changes to 1,500 feet. Now, there's a little contradiction also.
I think that would be a problem because that would essentially, you would not be able to build them anywhere in a residential zone.
Correct. But also, if you look at one page before, which is 126-135 and D, it basically also stated that prohibited wireless telecommunications in residential zones.
Yeah, so it's contradicting.
So it's not, you can't have wireless communication in residential zones. But if you look one sentence above that, it's also contradicting as well.
So
on paragraph 4.
Subsection D is the way I read that. These types of facilities are not prohibited. It's not a blanket prohibition for every single type of wireless facility. But it is specifying certain types that are not allowed. Antennas with a solid or wire mesh surface, for example. But that is different than.
So how far does a wireless tower go? What's their,
It depends on the type. I mean, you have small cell facilities which can be as large as maybe a small fridge and smaller to a greenfield facility, which is, they're building a brand new tower that's going several stories high. So there are multiple different types of wireless facilities.
Well, no, we're talking residential. So how far, like there's one at Cameron Park, how far does that one go? What's the radius? How many people does it reach? That's what I'm saying. There's obviously some type of signal that how far does it go?
Oh, how many customers it serves? That I don't have an answer for. That you need a RF engineer.
It's also going to depend on what radio frequency you're talking about, because if it's 5G, it covers much less area than 4G, and 3G is more, and 2G is even further. So it just depends on what you're talking about. So
the small cell facilities, they address less people, but they're smaller, and then they stack more in. But the idea is they're less visible. The larger towers supposedly cover more area. But the way the federal law is written is, if their engineer, the carrier's engineer, comes and says, I need this tower here to provide coverage, that significantly limits your ability to say no.
But also, the federal law also stated that as a planning commissions or as city councils, we can also decide on in terms of the locations of where we place these.
And they have to adhere to
well.
our code as well. We just want to roll out the red carpet.
So, for example, this is a zoning code. It consists of the entire land of West Covina. We're just basically saying that within the zoning code, only residential area are not allowed, but they can put in commercial areas or industrial area.
So the law allows you to regulate aesthetics. So you can address certain aspects. In some locations, you can say, this did not this close to residential. What you can't do is make that distance so big that it bans it completely from all residential space, because that becomes a prohibition. And that's where but I'll be frank, you'll get sued and probably lose.
Well, if we're getting sued, the city of Diamond Bar, the city of Walnut would have been sued already because they are prohibiting standalone wireless facility, 1,500 feet. So the questions come in is that at this moment in time, we're doing a zoning code which consists of all zoning and all building for the city of West Covina. So we're looking at right now is residential zoning code that we're talking about regarding the wire. They can put it in the commercial area and then the industrial area. And I don't know how many code that we had. There's like 10 or 16 of them before tonight, which is we're changing it to,
Well, I mean, you guys have the authority to change this code how you want. I just, as your attorney, am advising you.
Correct.
If I was on the other side, I would literally print out what you just said.
Well, then what does it
put it in my
matter if we ask for 15 or 2,000 if you're going to change it anyway? So let's just ask.
What does Walnut have?
Yeah, I can't speak to what Gardena has.
15,
I'm asking the people the city paid for, so our consultants. Do we know what Walnut had?
They said no other city has more than 1,000. That's not true.
That was the notification radius, not the separation requirements from facility. We're looking it up now.
Actually, we can make recommendation to the city, to our city councils, but it's also up to the city councils to make the adoptions.
Yes.
Commissioner Heng, you said the city of Walnut and what other city have a strict?
I believe with Diamond Bar.
Walnut and Diamond Bar.
Also, there's a little contradiction also too, above the sentence for D, above it number 4, there's a contradiction, is that wireless telecommunications facility located in the public right of way, which is allowed, which is even in residential zone, everywhere has public right of way.
This section is for all land uses. There is a separate section for telecommunication within the public right of way. So this section that we're reviewing at the moment is for wireless telecommunication facilities within all land uses. There's a separate section for telecommunication facilities within the public right of way. So if
the public right of way that is in residential zones, is that allowed? Because public right of way technically is everywhere.
Right, but they're also talking about the types of emergency response services.
Well, those
there's certain equipment that they do need to have in order to be able to get in touch with anyone if it is a major disaster. And so I can understand
that's
that in
list
the public right of way.
Number 1, 2, 3, but this is item number 4. What you're talking about is it's 1, 2, 3, which is not part of the emergency portion.
Who's to say that it isn't? Because if you look at...
Oh, it's listed for the emergency
If you look
portion.
at the signal lights, some of them actually do have some type of wireless communication equipment attached to them. And it could be that it is...
If you look above number 4, item number 2, it did state that. It said wireless communications are allowed on city-operated land for public agency when used for emergency response service, public utilities, operations, and maintenance. So that's covered on item number 2. This is talking about item number 4.
Right, but even in item number 4, which is dealing with the public right-of-way, just like you have Edison, there are certain services that may be needed, which isn't just immediately West Covina's fire and have you. The federal government has to be able to also have access to let people know if there is a major emergency.
Well, I understand that, but
So
that's
you would,
also
you
covered.
would want them to perhaps use the public right-of-way.
The public right of way, actually,
We
there's
have it already on our cell phone. Didn't we get a notification last week?
Yeah, they tested last week, tested everyone's cell phone to make sure.
In Russia.
I will say it is interesting. I was just looking to see if I could find the municipal code that Commissioner Hang and Commissioner Becerra were talking about in Walnut, and it appears that they're correct. Telecommunications towers and antennas shall not be located within 1,500 feet of any school, trail, park, or outdoor recreation area, sporting venues, and residential zones. Very interesting. I think that would be tantamount to a blanket prohibition based upon my understanding of the city of Walnut. But hey, who am I to judge?
And interesting enough, schools would be going through the state architect. They wouldn't.
Correct, and hospitals.
They could locate it on the property.
Correct.
Without even coming to the city.
Correct.
In the city, currently we are working on creating a map due to a previous application that was voted upon. And one of the items that I discovered is that there are some telecommunication facilities on city parks within the city of Walnut. I believe Suzanne Park has a light pole that has a telecommunication facility, and that's one of the wireless facilities that we mapped out. And also Mount Sac has a wireless facility, wireless telecommunication facility.
And I believe Diamond Bar High School, the high schools tend to have in their football fields, the light standards are telecommunication, because I actually had an opportunity to go to Diamond Bar High School to see the type of light fixtures that they had for telecommunication.
I mean, we're
I mean, certain projects are grandfather in. I get that. Basically, we're working on this code amendments for future use. So,
I know in the committee, obviously the telecommunications was a concern to, I know the mayor at the time and the council member at the time and the committee members. So,
I believe we were all on the same page as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how this got changed.
I did, and just for the Planning Commission's consideration on the City of Diamond Bar's separation required. And nope, I take that back. This was adult businesses. Never mind.
So if we were to...
But you're right about
the
schools and stuff. Yeah, they have them.
If we were to add like a requirement like the city of Walnut has, but for cases where obviously cell towers and coverage is needed, then by federal law, the city has to grant that. So regardless of what the city's ordinance may, or the code may say in the city of West Covina that we adopt eventually, in the end of the day, it's still, the federal law still supersedes it. So in any case, on case-by-case basis, it could be addressed, no?
Still have to come before the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Well, you do want your local code to be consistent with federal law.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to set it up where it's not.
Yeah.
So why does Walnut have that verbiage?
I'm not their attorney.
I will say that their residents united in bunches, and that's probably why they won that fight. Because when residents unite, the power of the people shows in court or outside of court. So
Actually, when the code was created, City Attorney, I'd like for you to explain to us that when the code was created 30 some odd years ago, I believe there are quite a few things that they actually allow the city to decide. I believe one of the things was the locations of the towel. And then the other was the type, where, how big it is, how small it is. City can actually dictate that. I forgot what the third or if there's the fourth one is. But I like to look into that because it was 30 years ago. I mean, there's certain things that we can't use. We can't basically say that, hey, we don't want this because of radiations or for health reasons. But they are also giving the city or any governing body to say that, hey, you guys get to say where you want to put this, which is this is what we're doing. We're having a zoning code discussions in terms of what we're going to do with our land. Where can we put industrial building? Where can we put commercial building? And this is somewhat a commercial thing. And where could we do, or what could we do with the residential area? Now, the other thing that they had also given us was the fact that what it looks like. And you had mentioned that aesthetically, we can actually turn down tolls if it doesn't aesthetically pleases the residents. So they did give us this, and that's why we're talking about this as well. Some city had already put some plans into it. So I guess we're in a discussion, and it's a long discussion, and this is a huge document that we're going through. And the fact that we don't have any residents that come out here tonight, I'm not sure if it's because obviously they're being informed, but maybe they just missed the meeting. And I'd like to see if we possibly can continue this so that perhaps we can get residents to come out, or at least they get a chance to listen to, this code will be affecting all land uses in the city of West Covina. Mm-hmm. Whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, everybody's being affected, whoever are the landowners.
I mean, I will. Are you making a motion to continue this?
I'd like to make a motion. Yes.
And I'll second that. And and if the commission is okay with that, I would also like to direct staff to put on social media and on our city's website the opportunity for the community to come speak at the next meeting regarding the code update. And get their participation in the matter and list some of the main topics discussed by the commission today and point that out on the post.
Chair, if I may, I just wanted to point out that we did a tremendous amount of community outreach on this item. We've had at least 7 public meetings discussing the development code update. We have a website specifically dedicated to the community development code update. We've sent out email blasts regarding the community development code update. We've had flyers and posters posted in public areas in the city. And at the last city council meeting, it was announced that tonight's meeting was going to be held today in front of a full council chamber.
I never heard anything. I'm a resident. I'm only here because.
But no, but staff has done a tremendous job, and obviously you guys have worked very hard to put this together. And I know you did too, Joanne and Paulina and the consulting firm, and then all your staff. I think we just want to make sure, obviously, the residents get one more chance and an opportunity to speak. If hopefully they do. If not, then they lose that opportunity to speak. But I think pointing out some of the big topics that we discussed today, and hopefully doing a post, will get some sort of public engagement. I think that was just the concern that some of us have, and
hopefully one more chance.
Yeah, and with that second, I'll say, Paulina, can you do roll call?
And
you could go, and Commissioner Lewis, go ahead.
Real quick, I'm on the fence with regard to continuing this, because ultimately there's going to be at least another round in which this can be considered in front of the city council. And I feel like, for the most part, if there is anything that anyone is particularly concerned about, they're probably most likely going to try to address that with the city council. My primary concern would be, to the extent that we get into any nuanced items here, I'd like to address those here and now if we can, and then if we do want to continue it such that the consultants can bring this back, city staff can bring this back for the express purpose of incorporating all of the things that were discussed this evening. I think that would be a more productive way of doing things, and I don't know what the timeline would be for that. But one of the things that I had concerns about was, and again, this is a small thing, but as it pertained to that mobile services aspect, and no offense to Paulina, but creating an ascertainable standard rather than the opinion of the community development director, I'd like to see. I'd like to see the consultants and staff come up with an ascertainable standard that perhaps has cross references to the various standards in our AUP, CUP standards, such that this can be something that isn't arbitrary and capricious. I would also say, to the extent that there's anything else that anyone has to add, that we can give that back to you. And you can come back hopefully fairly quickly with the minor changes that I think we're talking about, and then we can vote yay or nay on that, and then send it on to City Council. That would be what I think would be the most productive use of our time.
That would, if I can interject, that also allow us to look and see what Walnut and Diamond Bar are doing with their telecommunications and see what we can incorporate from that.
Yeah, I think a continuance not only to market the next meeting, but also incorporate what some of the members here said today and look into those issues and then get back to us at that next meeting. I think is important. I think that one of the great things is that obviously a council member has the ability to appoint commission members and be a public servant by asking those tough questions. So when it does go to the council, staff's able to communicate the commission's recommendation in detail and why the commission voted a certain way, why that should be taken off or should be left alone and stuff like that, because I believe that's very important before it goes to that next step. So with that being said,
can I interject one last time? So there's time sensitivity in getting this completed. So we are going to try to bring it back at the next planning commission meeting, so that we can get it on to in front of council before the deadline. So that is going to be our goal.
So I'll if Commissioner Hang wants to amend her commission, if Commissioner Hang wants to amend her motion, and I'll second it, which will include commissioners' comments today for city staff to look into and report back to the commission on some of the comments that were a concern to the commission members,
and integrate those comments into changes is what I would suggest.
Okay, all of that.
I think we should have them come back with the details, and then we have the chance to go through those details.
Well, integrating those comments into that's proposal, and then we can have the discussion about those prospective changes. Some of them are very straightforward, and so I think that they can come back with concrete proposals that we can say, okay, we're either going with that or we're going with the version that they previously gave us, or we're changing a word here or there. That way we can move this on, and I think that would be the most effective use of our time. That way we have concrete proposals in front of us. We can vote yay or nay on them or amend them based upon whatever legal considerations that need to be made. and that we need to consider prior to voting on them. I think that's the way.
So it's a lot to agree to each change, but I think city staff should look into like the comments you made about the changes you want. They should come back with a report and ways that it could, what's the pros and cons of that change and so forth. So if Commissioner Hang's okay with that?
Yes, that would be fine. I mean, all of us made really good, suggestions, so that we should incorporate all that and kind of like go through it. And then so next time we can continue the discussions as well.
And since there's a motion second, we'll do roll call and then open discussion after. Can we open discussion afterwards so you could input those comments for the next meeting? Or
I think the only thing is I want to make sure that whatever comments you guys want changes, that we get that direction today, so that when we come back to you at the next planning commission, you can look over all those proposed changes, because we're not going to, in order to meet that time frame, we're not going to be able to come back again and meet it. So that's going to be very limiting on our end. So the more feedback that you can provide us tonight, so that we're better prepared to respond to any changes or suggestions you have.
yeah, so like what Commissioner Lewis mentioned, a bunch
All
of
those lists, yeah. So we have that recorded. We can come back and watch it and, and take that feedback, and we can come back and say, okay, these are the suggestions you guys made. We were able to make them, or this is the feedback that we got back from Walnut or Diamond. This is what we can
exactly reference the two. Like,
so we'll do that.
Cities, and then we can make an educated decision like that.
And if we can just, if there's anything else that if you want to change or have comments on, if you can get that to us.
Yeah, we'll do that now. So we'll do the since there's a motion and a second, we'll do roll call, and then after that, we'll open up discussion. So you could get that input, or
we need the input now.
Yeah, Chair, it'd be appropriate to do the motion after the discussion. So the question now.
So we'll hold the motion second, and then open before we do a roll call.
Does any commissioner have any items?
I have one final thing, and I apologize, but my tabs got stuck together here. So with regard to, I believe this is 26-259 pertaining to tree pruning of any oak tree, unless the permit is first obtained from the planning division. I did notice that you have provisions for public necessity, meaning an emergent situation as it pertains to public trees, but you do not have any such provision for an emergent situation that occurs on private property as it pertains to any of those trees. And obviously, I think that's a problem. I don't think that anyone should be punished. And I also think there's another issue with that, is let's say hypothetically somebody has an oak tree that is over their property, and they want to install solar panels, and it impacts the efficiency of their solar panels. I think those exceptions need to be put into play, and we're not just talking about a 10% scenario. I think a 10% is, frankly, given how overgrown some of the oaks I see around the city are, 10% seems unreasonably minimal. So I'd like to see an increase in the amount of pruning that you can do to an oak tree without a permit from the planning division, perhaps up to 30% or something along those lines. I think that's reasonable, so long as you're not capping the tree in an impermissible manner. I think that everyone can agree to that. Unfortunately, I've seen some palm trees that I don't understand. I don't know why that's a thing, but I see them all over now. It's very bizarre. But anyway, I digress. That was my only other comment. Thank you.
If I may just comment on that just really quick, I know I do want to check with the arborist on that internally. We have that in staff to kind of get the ideal recommendation.
Certainly.
Percentage.
That's fine.
And some of my comments were in regards to clarification regarding, Commissioner Lewis mentioned earlier, regarding the shelter issue. I would like clarification on that meaning that's written down, because I think obviously if it's for domestic violence victims and stuff like that, then we have to take that into consideration. I think
For women with children.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that needs to be clarified.
There are some nonprofit like Wings that you may be aware of in Covina that take in. It's in Covina.
What's it called?
It's called Wings.
Wings?
It's a women's center.
They
Yeah,
provide housing for women and children who have domestic violence issues so the emergency shelter is a little different. And so maybe just clarification as far as the difference between homeless.
Yeah, clarification on what the proposed changes are or what the current changes. And then also, I want to know clarification, and I think this is a subject to post about, which will be changing a civic, what's the correct term? Civic / what? Institution or? So changing a civic / institutional into a commercial category. You know, I think in the past, residents have acted on that in the past, especially on green space and parks. I know that's a big concern for our residents, and I think that I would like clarification on that, and also to make sure that gets posted on in regards to notifying the community about it on social media. And
just one other thing, if when staff does come back on that, if we can find out what the origin of that initial zoning decision was, if it was something that was done specifically for that site, that the public had the opportunity to comment on specifically, and that college was put in place with that specific zoning requirement, I'd be interested to understand the background of that, such that if it is a significant change, that we're not disturbing people's understanding and opinions that were put into play in formulating that decision at the time. Because having a college campus there is very different from having a shopping center or something along those lines. People have a very different expectation and viewpoint towards those things. So I would like to just see the nexus of that.
Yeah, and I agree.
I have one more thing that I need to like to add is that the AB 1221. I believe that's the new code from the state. Are we incorporating that in here as well, or not yet? I think it's AB 1221. I think that. It's basically the increased heights, and there are several other items regarding the ADU.
There's some that
for 2023
January that allow ADUs to be 18 feet in height. Also, to come this coming January, they're going to allow on multiple family properties where people can subdivide them to 600 square feet. Multiple family property, but that's new legislation that's going to happen in January of this year.
600 square feet?
Yeah.
From what?
No. Multiple family zoned properties. And the only reason why it was limited to that, the American Planning Association, when they read it, realized the way the state was presenting it, it would have affected single family. And they themselves contacted the state and said, no, you don't want to do that with single family.
Some tight quarters.
Great. And then anything else, Commissioner Hang?
I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, the 600 square feet kind of throw me off. Is that? Do you remember what?
It's going to be a state law, and it's something that's going to take effect this coming January.
Do you remember what the code, the AB what?
No, I don't remember. There are quite a few. Even when it comes to the Native American and the AB 52, there are some new things that are going to come into effect in January dealing with that as well. So there's quite a few changes, things that are going to happen.
So I'll say that if our consultant could look into some of the recent laws that Governor Newsom has just signed into law that will maybe take in effect in January to make sure that the code update reflects current and obviously upcoming state laws that are going to go into effect in January.
It's state law already, if I remember correctly. That's why it's to take into effective January 1st of 2023 or 2024?
2024.
I'm sorry? Okay, so it is AB 2221.
Yes, AB, and the current code before you does include those provisions for ADUs.
I see.
Great.
I also hate to say this, but if we think that there's ever going to be a good stopping point for this California state legislature, we're going to be chasing our tails forever.
Yeah,
guys.
because it's a lot of stuff coming down.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Becerra, do you have anything to add?
Nothing more.
Okay, so we'll do roll call now.
Commissioner Hing?
Aye.
Continue. Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Becerra?
I do.
Chair Williams?
Aye.
And Chair Gutierrez?
There's two chairs now. That's good,
Vice Chair, I apologize.
Just kidding. It's okay. Aye.
And just to confirm, Commissioners, that motion was a continuance specifically to October 24th.
Correct.
With direction to staff to address all the comments provided.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this will be continued, and then now we'll move on to non-hearing items. We have no non-hearing items this evening. Commission reports and comments and miscellaneous items. Would any of the commissioners like to report or comment on an item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Community Development Director's report. Paulina, do you have any items to report?
Yes, I have a couple items I wanted to share with the commissioners. So this Saturday we have District 1 community meeting at Del Norte Park from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if anyone wants to get an update on from Mayor Pro Tem Tabatabai, he'll be having his community meeting. The regular city council meeting will be held October 17th. And then we do have a couple events coming up the end of the month. So we have Cartoberfest Car Show, which will be held at the Eastland Center between 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then we're going to have Festival of Frights on Long Glendora Avenue the following weekend, October 28th. There's going to be a Halloween costume contest for all ages, so everyone can participate. There's going to be a haunted maze and food and vendors. So
Is this our first Thunderfest?
No, sorry, it's a Festival of Frights. It's their second one that we're having on Glendora Avenue.
Oh, the one at Eastland. The car show.
Cartoberfest, we have had it before. I think it's the first time we're having it at Eastland. Yeah.
Great. And Paulina, do you have any city council actions to report?
I forgot to mention one thing. At the last council meeting, the council did a proclamation for National Community Planning Month, and being our planning commissioners, I know you guys, some of you were able to attend and receive that proclamation. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that we are celebrating Planning Month this month. The role that planning plays in creating great communities and shaping and building our city. It's vital, just as, we were discussing the development code update that plays a role up to, how high your wall can be to what use you can put on your property. So it impacts everyone, and it's a very important role that sometimes doesn't get a lot of attention and audience for it. But so just wanted to say thank you for being on our commission, and we're happy to celebrate Planning Month this month. And then there's no city council action items to report at this time.
Great, thank you. And I would like to adjourn this meeting in sending my condolences to the store clerk who this past week there was a violent shooting in our city in District 1 at a local store, and the store clerk passed away in that shooting. And I want to make it clear that obviously those two suspects have been posted by our police department, and our social media accounts are showing who those two kids are. And sooner or later, you could run, you could hide, but the men and women of the West Freedom Police Department will find you. And be ready, because we'll catch you. And also, I'd like to adjourn this meeting and sending my condolences also to the people of Israel, and again condemn Hamas on their attack in Israel. And this meeting is adjourned at 9:48 p.m. Pacific time.